Hi, this is Astro Indicator Update, Excursions into Practical Astrology. My name is Stephen, and today's date is April 4th, 2020, episode 33. And what are we looking at today? Well, a lot is going on in the world, and I think it pays to look at the U.S. astrology chart fairly frequently, so that's what we're going to do today. And then we'll look at the markets that we usually look at: the New York Stock Exchange, the Dow Jones, gold, silver, Bitcoin, the US dollar. And then I have one article in particular on precious metals. Particularly if you don't know much about precious metals, it would be a good one to read. And I'll comment on just that market, the retail market at the moment. Okay, so this is the U.S. astrology chart. Again, it is the chart in the middle here, and the transits, the current position of the planets is in this outer ring. I've gone over this many times for people. If you need to go back and look at some of my other videos, the big thing that's happening is that we have an opposition taking place between Pluto, which is quite slow moving, and the USA Mercury. Okay, the Mercury deals with a number of symbols. It deals with business, communication, the media, schools, transportation, and even health. In a I think in somewhat a more minor way, oddly enough. But all these things are going through a Pluto-type transit, which usually at every level, individual level, more broader level, deals with a crisis, a sense, and oftentimes that feels like it's life and death. Let's see. We see that in all those symbols that I just mentioned. Business is shut down. Health care system is, in overload. Transportation is basically shut down on a broader scale. But I am updating this because we have some other things coming into the picture right now. And one of those is that we have Jupiter, that symbol right there, has caught up with Pluto. Normally, 80% of the time, when Jupiter is in aspect with a personal planet or a planet of a country, it brings about a greater sense of faith. Some degree of optimism starts entering into the picture. A little bit more confidence. I say 80% of the time because there are examples of when Jupiter is getting stronger, that things just get larger. They just amplify. In our case, let's look at the epidemic. They could be amplifying in their severity. But when I look at the news, I also see articles coming out indicating that we do have treatments, medicines, hydrochloroquine, I think is how it's pronounced. I'm close. Has been found to be quite successful, and so I think that it's a generic drug. It's not expensive. They should be using that widely. Vitamin C has been intravenously found to be helpful as well for severe respiratory distress, and that's getting more into the news. So I wanted to note that because these two conjoin, are an exact conjunction by transit tomorrow, Sunday, and I think there's a potential that better news, a turning point, could be happening fairly soon. In addition, as you come up here, I've got these sort of out of order. Mars has been transiting this making this opposition as well. And now it's well past. Here's Mars right there. Mars, again, can deal with, in this case, heightened panic. Okay, I won't go into the whole thing about Mars. But it may be waning, diminishing. The peak may have hit, a week or 10 days ago in terms of the emotional, psychological component of this phenomena. And so that could be a good thing. I'm presenting these things as possibilities that I see sort of matching up. Maybe I'm being that Jupiter element of bringing some hope into the picture. In addition, we have Pallas Athena, which is this little symbol, which is an asteroid. Again, Pallas Athena represents a number of things. It's sort of the warrior goddess energy. We're fighting something right now. But it also has to do with healing in sort of an energetic level of healing frequently, but healing, in a broader sense. So that too, could bring something more positive here. Now, having said all that, having said that we may have hit a turning point, there may be more, positive developments on the horizon. We have to look out ahead because this Pluto transit is lasting for some time. In fact, it's going to last through the year. And there's going to be sort of peaks and valleys. It's going to ebb and flow. Well, we're going to get a stronger dose of it at the end of this month when Pluto appears to stop and then go retrograde. Is the expression that is used, the terminology that's used. It stops at 25 degrees Capricorn and then comes back and will be exact Mercury later in the year, probably in May. So we'll have to see. There are upsides to Pluto. It can bring about a sense of catharsis and healing, a letting go, a purging of things that need to be purged, okay? And there are dark elements in our society that need to be purged. So we want to look at it at that level as well, okay? So keep that in the back of your mind. Take that into consideration. Okay, I'm going to move on here. So here's the Dow Jones. We'll do a brief thing of the markets because particularly with the Dow Jones, this is our big drop. We have some things coming up that are worth putting on your calendar. Now, I try to be brief, but I combined astrology with traditional, what's called technical analysis. All these horizontal lines are considered support and resistance areas that I've drawn in. These are trend lines that are used in standard, conventional ways of analyzing a chart. And these are moving averages that I look at. The horizontal lines are important astrological dates related specifically to this particular market. The advantage of knowing this is that you can look ahead and see when something may be occurring. Now, you just have to go back and listen to my other videos because I can't review this every time, but you can see turning points here, or at least bounces frequently happening. I'm not right all the time, but I've tracked this stuff for 25 years. And sometimes things do not react the way I might expect, and that is telling as well, because it indicates that a market may be very, very weak. In fact, this line right here is historically, from my research, should have been much more bullish. We should have maybe broken through this downtrend line on that day, and we did not. I mean, conceivably there's a delay going on here, but at this point it seems like we may indeed drop down at least to test this support line. There's one area of technical analysis called Elliott wave, and we haven't completed a 5-wave down, a 5-leg down. If you want to count these things, they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and very, very often we have 5 legs to a large move, and we have not. There's different ways of counting and interpretations of this, but it seems pretty clear to me that we have not completed the 5th wave down. Having said that, we have an important date coming up in the astrology, and that is on Tuesday. That represents Tuesday the 7th. Now, this oftentimes is sort of a bullish day. And we may, if we drop down on Monday, we may get a bounce on Tuesday. But we're getting to the point where we have a lot of resistance levels. All these horizontal lines, this trend line. This trend line is very important. If we break that, we may end up going higher. And what I've just said about retesting the support and so forth will not be happening. So, but look for what's happening on Tuesday and on Wednesday, because we have 2 very important things happening this week. And if we end up heading down, then to me that is confirming that this market has still a lot of weakness in it, and we will need to test stronger support on the downside. If we break through this trend line, we could, let's say, test this level right there. Okay, that was one of the more important things I wanted to say about markets was had to do with the astrology in the Dow Jones. Okay, let's quickly look at gold. Gold, in contrast to the Dow Jones, does not have a lot. I mean, we're combining things. We're combining the fundamental situation in the world where the Federal Reserve is printing trillions of dollars, and that probably at some point is going to filter into the system. So fundamentally, the possibility of inflation is out there. People move to gold and silver, because of those things happening. But the astrology isn't real strong until we get to the end of the month here. If we break this downtrend line, gold is going to test this line. This is just sort of how it works. We'll have to see. Based on the astrology, I kind of feel we may get some, bouncing up and down here, but the bullish force in the astrology isn't happening until the end of April, like April 23rd, 24th. So watch how it goes. I sort of nailed this one right here where we got the big bounce. We're maybe in a bounce situation here, but the strongest one, within the most recent time frame and upcoming is this April 24th date. Okay, silver really took a hit. One of the more manipulated markets in the world. And it should just be much, much higher given the buying demand that is at the retail level for silver right now. They have just, all the mints have run out of silver. This should be much higher. In the astrology, again, we don't have a lot going for it right here. We're kind of bumping up against this ceiling, this resistance level. But when we come out to the 11th, okay, to the 13th, let's see. There's several things happening that I don't think are that strong, but they're occurring. Not this upcoming week, but the following week, between the 11th and the 16th. And again, just the fundamentals may kick this market into gear. I think you're pretty safe about, it not going lower, given the retail situation. But we may trade sideways for a little while here. Bitcoin. Well, the big advantage with Bitcoin is that we know that there's only going to be so many Bitcoin ever made. And just like precious metals that take a lot of work and energy to get out of the ground, Bitcoin has a scarcity factor built into it that is likely to preserve its value and actually increase its value considerably over time, particularly if we see nations, countries' currencies being undermined by their stimulus packages. I always like that phrase, stimulus packages. Anyway, what's happening in Bitcoin? Well, what's happening in Bitcoin is that, again, we don't have a lot of strong astrology. The stronger astrology was right here at the end of March, and we are continuing higher since that time, and we've broken through a couple resistance. We broke through this resistance level, that resistance level, and we're riding this kind of the rail of this trend line that's continuing to go up. Again, combine your methods when you're analyzing these things. If we broke through this trend line, we may have to come back and test this support level. The astrology on, I've got something happening on the 10th, April 10th, but to tell you the truth, I'm not terribly confident about this. I haven't researched enough exactly, the transits that are taking place in Bitcoin that are related to that date. But it's something to at least watch out for. Okay, U.S. dollar. So the U.S. dollar, just on the surface, you would think it would be tanking when the Federal Reserve and the Treasury are printing trillions of dollars to buy up things and shore up the banking system and so forth. But because so much debt in the world is dollar-based, and people need dollars to pay their debt, there's sort of a scarcity of dollars taking place. And so this is the reason why it's at least holding its own. And it actually has increasingly sort of supportive astrological energy coming up. So this date we have to see what happens early this week, because this could be a peak right there, just like this was a peak and not a continuation pattern and fell through. I'm not going to confirm that this is moving higher until Monday and Tuesday, and then if it starts to drift lower, it could drift lower until we get to this next date, which is around the 11th. Okay, it's not showing up down here, but this is the 11th, and then the next strong date in the dollar is the 21st. Okay, the 20th or 21st. So, I mostly include this because it's a indicator for inflation. It's, it often trades somewhat in a general fashion inversely to gold. It's just, a fairly smart idea to track the dollar. So here we go. This is a good article. I've followed Alistair McLeod at goldmoney.com for quite a while. He's usually ahead of the curve in seeing what trends are taking place in the world of currencies and precious metals, and he's a bright guy. But we're in a very critical situation with how many, people have lost their jobs. I don't have to tell you that with what's going on with the pandemic and so forth. We are in a very critical situation. But he says here, the purpose of this article is purely educational. The wider public is turning to gold in a spontaneous reaction to financial and economic problems that have become suddenly apparent, hastened by the spread of the coronavirus. I'm going to skip down here. It is not just the financially inexperienced, but investment managers, financial advisors are equally unaware of what is happening to money and capital markets. We are in the early stages of a radical debasement of state-issued currencies, which is on course to collapse the entire financial system. You know, he's not splitting, he's not, what's the phrase, holding back his punches. I forget what the phrase is. I explain the two phases of this destruction of fiat money, the one experienced so far and the one we are about to suffer. I explain why sound money has always been physical gold and silver, returned to by the people after government and banks have collectively destroyed state-originated unsound money. This article is much longer. I recommend it to people who want a better understanding of what's taking place. Okay, just as an example of what's going on in the retail market. Okay, this was a picture taken Saturday, April 4th. Silver today is trading at $14.62. If you tried to buy it at your local store or from an online reputable dealer, okay, I want to emphasize that, probably the lowest price that you can get for it is around that, under, something under 24. Huge premiums are being charged for silver right now. I've seen much worse. I've seen it double, 100% premiums, up to $28, $30. So this is a good price for silver right now for what it's worth. I think at another company, Miles Franklin, milesfranklin.com, you can get something similar. You could look at goldcore.com. This is a company that's been around a long time as well. I haven't done business with this company. I have done business with the other ones that I've mentioned. You could check out Shift Gold. But you can see the demand is taking place. And this is the same true for gold. Gold is selling for $16.45 right now. If you try to buy it retail, you couldn't buy it for under $18.20 or something. So it's just, there's a supply, crisis happening because many of the mints are closed, many of the mines are closed around the world, and it's very likely that, the supply chain situation is going to get worse. Okay, I wanted to present that to you. If you want to do some research, look into it. But to tell you the truth, this is not a bad price for silver right now. Okay, I just discovered this fellow on YouTube, and this is my last recommendation, but it's Bellin GP. And he's done a lot of videos, but then he took a lot of time off, and I've only listened to his last 4 or 5. They're pretty technical when it comes to economics, but he presents his material very clearly, and it's worth looking at. And for example, this is a recommendation, but here's what he's talking about at this point, and it's kind of startling. This is the Federal Reserve economic research, came out this past week on the initial claims, jobless claims that just were reported on this past week. And this was 2008 or 9, where we had, this is 665,000 claims, was the high point of the last Great Recession. That was the high point. 665,000 was the jobless claims high point. This is what we had this week, 6.6 million, 10 times the amount, okay? So, we're going into very unpredictable territory here. And this fellow gets into talking about the potential for hyperinflation. That's one way that debt is handled. And that's, that's a debatable point, and I respect both sides, but that could be one outcome for us in the future. So check out Bellin GP. I think he seems like a pretty smart guy. So that's it for today. Again, my name is Stephen. I've been studying astrology for 40 years, master's degree in psychology. As I've said with every episode, I am a hard money cryptocurrency advocate. I do accept Bitcoin donations. That's one of my wallets. I do also astrology consultations at time, and you can email me at astroindicator@gmail.com. But if you like this video, please hit the like button, consider subscribing. Normally I do these every couple weeks or irregularly, so subscribing, you can be notified. I just have been doing them a little more frequently given our situation. So anyway, I hope everyone is taking care of themselves and their family, and just treating everyone out in the world as as nicely as possible, because everyone is so stressed out. And take this time to do some homework and see what you can do to possibly improve your situation. But thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.